Uh, Thank you very much. This is the Angaza movement, a movement of civil society organizations observing and monitoring the elections. And we welcome you to the press conference. I would like the people reading the press conference to introduce themselves. From my extreme right.
Khalif Khalifa, chairman of Muhuri, and also member of Angaza.
Davis Malombe, Executive Director, Kenya Human Rights Commission, and a member of Angaza.
Winnie Masai, Executive Director for Inform Action and also a member of Angaza movement.
And mine is Kawibe Wambua, work with Inuka, Kenya Nisisi, and a member of Angaza. And our colleagues here. In the interest of time, I think we'll invite Winnie to start us off with the reading of the statement.
So thank you so much, Kawive. The title of our press release this morning is The Angaza Movement, Preliminary Observation of the 2022 Elections. And so I'll start off with reading it. We, the Angaza Movement, wish to congratulate Kenyans for the restraint they have exercised despite the emerging concerns on the outcome of the 2022 elections. It has been a tumultuous season with positives and negatives that require acknowledgement and serious reflection if they were to enhance the electoral process that has remained deficient in trust over the years, despite massive investment of hope and resources. Kenya expected the IBC to conduct an election that is free and fair, simple, accurate, verifiable, secure, accountable, and transparent. It is these parameters that we're going to use this morning to evaluate the performance of the IBC. We have made the following observation of the electoral process. 1. Failure of the KIMS kit. Over 200 KIMS kits failed to identify voters during voting. This translates, in our view, actually, this translates to a lot of voters who may have been disfranchised. In many cases, it took the IBC many hours to allow the use of manual register to identify voters, which often resulted in voter suppression, as disappointed aspiring voters were turned away or left in frustration. Procedures adopted were totally inconsistent from one polling station to another. Consistency and transparency are legal requirements and are also very critical in building trust in the integrity of the electoral process. Where KIMS kit failed to identify persons through biometric data, there was no systematic procedures for identification of voters through alphanumerical procedures or manual register. With different polling stations adopting different procedures, adopting different procedures for identification of voters through alphanumeric and manual register. The process of transmission and verification of the results and eventual tallying once again faltered and left Kenyans in the dark for several days, feeding suspicion and malpractice. This was after a start that on the face of it appeared very refreshing, efficient, transparent, and gave Kenyans hope of a greater transparency than in the past recent election. The lack of civic and voter education can be attributed to an unusual high number of rejected votes. While the issue of the rejected votes has been settled by the Supreme Court, it continues to raise questions around the aggregate tally at the end of the elections. The other issue is the unilateral and incomplete announcement of election results by the chair of the IEBC. The announcement of the results at the National Tallying Center left more questions than answers. It was done in the absence of the announcement of results from at least 28 constituencies, if not more. This was a significant proportion due to the multiple failures of the kits. The announcement also did not consider the numerous queries and comments of the party agents on the floor of the National Tallying Center. The number, potential impact, and gravity of the concerns raised are therefore unknown. Most disturbingly are the concerns raised by the 4 commissioners about the results being incomplete and therefore unverified based on the questionable and faulty Form 34C. The disunity of the commission was underscored by the fallout of most of the commissioners who announced simultaneously at a different venue in the city that they had no confidence in the final tallied result, and issues concerning the verification and other concerns raised by them had been ignored. They alleged that the chairperson did not consult, that the results were incomplete and verified, and therefore they could not take ownership of the final results as announced. The division has impacted the trust and credibility of the results in the eye of the public. The other issue was the chaos during the tallying process. So we as the movement, we as Angaza movement also condemn the chaos by political actors towards the end of tallying in Bomas. Violence is never a solution, and models unacceptable behavior by leaders to their followers. So this, in our view, must be prosecuted. So I'll welcome Davis to take over from here. Okay.
So the next fundamental concern we have is around unilateral cancellation of elections by the IBC chairperson. On August 8, IBC chairperson Chebukati announced that elections were cancelled in 2 counties, mainly Mombasa and Kakamega, and various other places like like Pokot South, Kachaliba, and Tharaka Nithi County, and of course there was Ruto. According to Chebukati, errors and other mixed up in the details and images of candidates on the ballot papers rendered them unusable. However, Chebukati did not explain to voters how these errors had happened, as the commission must have signed off on proof copies of ballot papers and tender documents, prescribed document specifications. This has had the effect of disenfranchising voters and offending the constitution, which provides for them when elections shall be held. And of course, we know the basis for cancellation of the elections is in the event of insecurity, and disaster, and also violation of the Elections Act. The statement of August 8th by Chebukati, without a plenary meeting or consultation with other commissioners, that these elections will now be postponed indefinitely, is a violation of the election laws. This is a travesty of justice for the people in Mombasa, Kakamega, and also in other areas of representation, which is the Rongai constituency, Kitururo, Kachaliba, and Pokot South, and of course the MCA seats in Nairobi and also in Meru counties. It is therefore unacceptable that the IBC chair is allowed to act with such an egregious lack of regard for the rule of law, regulations, and procedures. Intimidation and harassment, which the chair used, cannot be the basis for justifying the postponement of an election in respect to Regulation 64A of the General Regulations of the Elections Act. As we have said, the division within the IBC, the concerns and the matters raised has deadened the credibility of the process and, of course, the outcome. It is important and urgent that these issues be investigated thoroughly, further through an independent and transparent audit. Public officials must be subjected to greater scrutiny as they hold office in trust and on behalf of the citizens. Pursuant to Article 232, sub-Article E of the Constitution of Kenya, it provides that public officials are personally liable for administrative actions. Public officials must be subjected to greater scrutiny. Over the years, and most recently in 2017, public officials cited for various malpractices were left scot-free. The bungled 2017 elections mirror some of the recurring incidents, and it is time for individuals to be held to account if they are found culpable, and of course, which means violation of the law. We also condemn the defamation, threatening, and also profiling on social media and elsewhere on different media of all the commissioners and other personnel of the IBC, including the returning officers. We understand there is a lot of effort to also target the returning officers, and therefore we ask for their protection. The commissioners are being subjected to intense pressure and threats, and the men from the home areas profiling them as traitors. Political principals must call on their followers to desist from victimizing these public servants who believe they are acting in good faith to protect the public interest. And with respect to the cancellation of elections in the areas we have talked about, we as Angaza members, we are also going to court to push for timely execution of those elections, and of course protection of IBC officials as they carry out those elections.
The other issue that we speak to is the issue of loss of lives. Elections have often caused human rights abuses, loss of lives, and serious injury. We are saddened by the unnecessary deaths of people in the country during the electoral period. And among them, there is the Embakasi East returning officer, Daniel Musyoki, was abducted while on official duty and later found dead in Loitoktok. Secondly, there is Brian Olunga, an aide of an aspirant who was shot dead at point blank range by eventual electoral victor Didmas Barasa. Thirdly, there is Eunice Nyambane, who was attacked and killed on Juja Road by rowdy crowds who attacked her family's car. Her child and husband are currently in hospital as a result. Two other individuals, including Edel Queen Akinyi, fell over a police land cruiser in Kondele, in Kisumu. One of them is in critical condition at the Jaramogi Oginga Odinga Teaching and Referral Hospital. And then there is Mohamed Kanyare, a young presiding officer in Elders constituency in Wajir County, who was shot after refusing to alter an election results form in favor of a particular candidate. He has since lost his leg to amputation after being shot. We are also investigating further that other two people were shot in the melee. These are just the cases of those that have been highlighted by the media. There could be more. We demand that the police and relevant authorities thoroughly investigate, prosecute, and adjudicate these crimes. We also remind Kenyans that the family of the IBC ICT director, Chris Musando, has yet to receive justice for his murder in 2017. The other issue is that we want to speak to is strengthening of the rule of law. We know that the next phase of the cycle is post-election dispute resolution. And it's a critical stage that requires a high level of sobriety as parties converse contentious issues. We have received assurances that the judiciary is prepared to handle all electoral-related disputes, both administratively and armed with the requisite human resources. We urge that the judiciary remains an impartial arbiter in the process, as the tranquility and peace of the nation depends on the perceptions and trust bestowed on it by citizens, owing to the fact that the other key actor, IEBC, has fallen short of this. As the Angaza movement, we continue to document the gains and losses of the 2022 elections, especially on the participation of youth, women, and persons with disability and marginalized communities, together with the various human rights aspects as they are enshrined in the Constitution. We urge citizens to remain vigilant, as a single incident could erode the progress Kenya has made since the promulgation of the Constitution of Kenya in 2010. Thank you very much. So that's the end of our statement. In case there are any questions, although the trend now is not to take questions after a reading statement. But we are open to questions, because this is a responsibility for all of us as citizens and as observers to go through with the process up to the end, informing each other and informing the process. Yes.
At first, the ICC received the use of mandatory registration, and the High Court suspended it. The order it was supposed to be used by the presiding officer depending on the class and the polling station. Now you find that some of the part of the areas like Mandera, Marsabit, there was a kind of conflict. What was the alternative of that? How did the election happen in such areas? I would like you to comment on that.
Okay. There was another one? Okay. Another? Okay. Okay. Yes. Okay. Yes. Sorry, I didn't get that. Okay, so well, we'll take those questions and then we take others. I can take a few and then ask my colleagues to take others. The question that you asked about the manual register, we know that, for instance, in Makwiny, in Kakamega, in other areas, there was massive failure of the KIMS kits. And as a matter of fact, that people who had gone to vote, who go to vote early, did not wait to vote in the afternoon, because the IBC took 6 hours to process a decision of when a KIMS kit fails to when a manual register can be used. So 6 hours means that a lot of people left and did not come back. And that we have said in our statement is disenfranchisement of voters, and it is inefficiency on the part of IEBC, because the failure of KIMS kit is not new. It was there before, and they should have planned adequately and processed mechanism of making decisions when the KIMS kits failed. And therefore, in those areas, significantly, there are lower voter turnout as compared to other areas. Then the other one is on the question of peace, that I respond to, that there have been calls for peace. Even right now, there's a lot of call for peace, let's move on and all that. But peace does not replace justice, number one. And number two, we have in our statement condemned the violence on the tallying center, because we believe as Kenyans there are other ways of getting what you want done without necessarily resorting to violence. Violence, we have said, does not lead to resolution. It gives birth to further violence. And therefore, as we condemn that, we are also saying that the peace narrative should not be used as a conduit for eclipsing justice. Because what we are talking about is electoral justice, and that justice, the other mechanisms outside violence that can be used to achieve it. So let me invite my colleagues to respond to the other question on tallying and what we have realized from 2017, 2010.
Thank you. Let me also respond to Anamba, and then Winnie and Elef will also come in. I think the issue of manual register is a question which came towards the end because of the decision which was taken by the IBC. Remember, I think it was 3 weeks ago when IBC indicated that we are not going to be using the manual register. We are going to go fully digital. And because we know there's going to be high chances of KIMS failing, actually, as Angaza members, we went to court and we got orders to have KIMS being part of the alternatives to identification of voters. And it's interesting to see that also IBC went to court to also challenge that decision, which was quite progressive, because actually we are trying to create more accountability and also certainty when it comes to identification of voters. So I think on this issue, I think we need to hold the IBC to account, because they are the ones who proposed this retrogressive administrative action, and when we challenged it to court, they also went again to appeal. So, and that is the reason then we went to election with a lot of confusion on whether the man who reached out was going to be utilized or not, because the decision of the Court of Appeal, I think it came on Monday, a day before the election. So I think that's one of the issue which IBC did not make very progressive administrative action. And that's why then we had so many challenges. When Kims failed, officers on the ground who are not able to make decisions on time. So I think those are some of the areas we are saying we need to have proper reforms around our elections. Again, the question of justice. I think we have always taken position, and because we have been involved in election. Whitney, you can come in and talk about the tally and other issues. And the case.
Okay, I think there was a question that was asked about the gains, what is different from previous elections. I think for these elections, we've seen a lot more women elected to competitive positions like the governor, unlike before. So I think that is a good step towards the realization of two-third gender rule in Kenya. We do acknowledge and appreciate the fact that, of course, a lot needs to be done. Another thing that I would say that I think stood out for me in terms of this election is that we've seen people elect independent candidates for competitive positions like the governor. We had an independent candidate, one of them was elected, and that is good because it means, for me, in terms of maturity and democracy, the communities are able to separate, an issue and just choose someone. Because we also appreciate that, in terms of how the party primaries were done this year, there was a lot of negotiated democracy. So you would find that sometimes the candidates that end up in the ballot are not the choice of the community. So the fact that the communities can make that decision, for me, I think is a great gain. The other issue, again, I think, as we've seen, is there's been a lot of restraint following the announcement, the declaration, of the winner by Chebukati. And I think that is commendable, unlike before. But also commendable was the fact that I think there was largely the space to have a peaceful protest. I'm saying largely because I think there are a few pockets of violence, but the fact that at least those demonstrations were not quelled by police, so it was not criminal. They allowed the space to protest. So for me, those are some of the gains I think I would pick at this point. Thank you.
Okay. So,
What was the question, Tani?
What was the question, Tani?
What?
Mm-hmm. No. Your turn. Okay.
I think that is something that as a country we need to address very, very, very carefully. There was a question that was asked about the tally, which I forgot to answer, whether we have an independent tally, and that is for us, we have been observing the process, so we cannot say conclusively that we have a national tally, because even the whole lot, the complete set of results of the elections has not been made. Even if you look at the form that 4Bs, it just gaps. So you cannot authoritatively want to put out there another tally which is not fully informed. And I think there are questions that are being asked about how the tallying was done. Yes, so thank you very much. So let me invite the General, the Chairman of Uhuru to speak.
You have raised the issue of leaders pledging peace, and what we have witnessed at Bomas is a complete contrary. The same leaders who preach peace, they are the one who incite members of the public in their rallies. A lot of incitement, and unfortunately it's about insulting each other, and this has gone on almost all the rallies. In particular issue, I want to talk about the failure of the Kim's kit. I have witnessed personally in Mombasa at Vita Primary School polling station, where a young lady, after delaying almost 3 hours, so she was in the queue. By the time she went to put her thumb on Kim's kit, and it says that you already voted. And she did not vote because the station was just open, and she protested. Okay, and it says, well, there's nothing we can do about it. And then it says, okay, let us we call the RO here and there, and nothing happened. And some of these cases we also witnessed other police station in Mombasa. Somebody said, I have been in this polling station for many, many years. His name was not there at all. So very few polling stations, they had a manual register, but many of them did not have. So this is one of the issues that we worry. On the issue of tallying at Bomas, it is not only the 4 commissioners who raised the issue. Even presidential party agents, when they were announcing the tally, they raised to the IBC, but numbers are not matching between 34A and 34C. But they were ignored. Unfortunately, they were ignored. So these are the issues that maybe we have not learned what went wrong in 2017, and there's a lot of repetition in 2022.
Hapo tushe na ungependa kujua kwa 100% hivi ungependa kuwapa tume ya IEBC ngapi? Kama ungewapa ngapi?
Hiyo itakuwa shida kabisa. Tazama hesabu sasa hivi hapo tutaendelea.
Getting to contention.
On that issue of the issues raised by the commissioners and the fallout, what is your position? And do you think it stands enough ground for a legal defense?
Well, it's hard to say. What they said, I think there's a lot that they have not said yet. Okay? But they have compelling reasons for them to pull out. Because being a commissioner, and 7 of them have responsibility, equal responsibility. So if they come up forward and they said, we are in the dark, we don't know what is going on, you know? We were asked to come in and sign the final results without knowing how they came about. So they have compelling reason why they have raised those issues.
Regarding the murder of the IBC officer, what do you think it creates in terms of climate of insecurity around the commission, and how do you feel that it impacts the whole electoral process?
Let's go back to 2017, the murder of Chris Msando. It has not been solved 5 years to date. And it was politically motivated, definitely. It's not a murder that just happened by accident. So, and this is happening again.
But sir, this morning the DPP has just sent a warning message to Jamai to quickly find out the findings of the slave animals of the Angaza. And since he went missing up to date, we haven't received any message from the government. What is your option and what's your take on this?
Well, I don't understand why the office for DPP has to ask Mutembei to do his job. They should have done from the first day, from that minute. So they're not doing any investigation on it. If they were serious, those guys would be apprehended by now.
But what do you feel are the consequences of this on the electoral process?
Yes.
So I think from your question, what this has done, it has brought an environment of fear, for sure. And it is the reason the parties that announced they will not be able to proceed with the elections within the areas where they post vote. And as we have explained also, the issue of Soka is not in isolation. There has been a major strategy to also target other returning officers, not just in Nairobi, but also in other parts of the country. So actually we are really concerned about that, and therefore we are calling for IBC also to develop a mechanism of also ensuring security for ECT, and also the IG to also provide security for the IBC commissioners and also the officials across the board. Yeah, so we are really concerned about that issue seriously, because it will also affect how elections are also done forward.
So we want to thank you all for joining us in this meeting. We know that we all have a responsibility as the media and as civil society and all actors to ensure that Kenya continues to be a going concern. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.